Hey, Scott Fresener here with t-biz TV, and I'm with my good friend Richard Greaves, and this is our first show of the T-shirt report. And you're going to see Richard and I weekly. We hope to do it weekly, don't we, Richard? That's our plan. Well, unless you're snowed in, and I'm out by the pool sipping a margarita, and I have other things going on. But
it's 72 degrees here in the office.
Our plan is to do a weekly show with industry news, tech talk, support questions. I get support questions all the time. Richard does, and we get those calls.
Questions. I would love to answer.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about those. We're going to give our opinions, our rants, our raves, our ideas, kind of keep you up to date with stuff. Richard is in beautiful downtown Detroit. I'm broadcasting from broadcasting. You like my little microphone here? I'm broadcasting from beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona, where it's going to be 85 today, and I may have to turn the AC on, But anyway, was it last week? Time flies when we have fun. We're having fun. The Super Bowl was in Phoenix, Arizona, and we say Phoenix loosely. It's in some cow pasture in a place called Glendale, Arizona, out in the middle of nowhere where there's no infrastructure, no hotels or anything else. So the Super Bowl was here, and the big news, and locally, of course, there was all kinds of events. The city was packed with people, but one of the big headlines on the news stations was the counterfeit T-shirts. I thought that was interesting. I remember years ago the Super Bowl was in Phoenix, and I'm not sure, 2008, and I had quite a few printers call me, hey, I'm in town. What are you in town for? Well, we're in town for the Super Bowl. Or really, what are you doing at the Super Bowl? Well, we're working a little bit. But here's the story. The story I dug up on the ICE website. This is the government website, ICE. They confiscated $19.5 million worth of merchandise in what they called Operation Team Player. There you go. Somebody said, hey, let's call this something kind of funny. They confiscated 326,000. Now, that doesn't mean just T-shirts, because the thing included any souvenir products, but it included in the article fake jerseys, baseball caps, T-shirts, jackets, and other souvenir items, meaning that those were the big items. So figure they confiscated 326,000 items. I just thought it was interesting that people kind of move in, and of course they probably arrested a few prostitutes too because it was Super Bowl weekend. But did you ever do any bootlegging? I know we have to stop the cameras from rolling here.
Early in my career, my old boss said, "Oh, we're going to do a special job tonight. Can you stay later?" Yeah, sure. It was very early in my career, and these shirts started to arrive. Regular shirts. And I'd done the screens before, and they were for football teams, and we printed up, I don't remember how many it was, but we worked through the evening, and we got a cash bonus for showing up. And then the next day I started asking, what was that? Why do we have to do that in a timing lunch? Don't think about it.
Don't go there.
Oh, I get it.
And that's the reason for the cash bonus, right? Little hush money.
It's okay. I did not realize that I was doing it until later on, but every employee that I've ever had has wanted a record album done. I have the positive over in my collection for Born to Run, Slingerland drums, CBS News.
I think we all have done it. A lot of us have. I think people do it by accident too. Somebody brings in something, and it's maybe a play on words or a play on a Disney thing, and they're going to do a dozen shirts. I think people do it, but I'm so old, and so are you, but I think I'm older than you, obviously. But I used to do Coors and Budweiser transfers before they cared. We're talking early 70s, where there was no licensing, nobody knew about merchandise rights, and you did all that stuff. And then slowly it kind of evolved to where all of a sudden they're going, hey, we could make some money on that. But I did a ton of stuff. I did everything. I did Mickey Mouse stuff, which probably was bootlegging. And then it would have been a trademark infringement. But the Budweiser, the Coors, all that kind of stuff, nobody seemed to care at all. But I think everybody done it. One of our friends that we won't mention, one of our industry profile experts, he was a big bootlegger. You know what I'm talking about, too.
I couldn't possibly comment.
No, not at all. Hey, speaking of bootlegging, this seems to be our topic. This is our quick industry news segment, by the way. I was shocked to read that Adobe is suing Forever 21 for bootlegging Photoshop. Now, I went online and I dug up an article on that, and Forever 21 is like a $3.5 billion company. You hadn't heard of them because you don't go to the mall and look at the kids stores where it's all the glitter and the you think glitter is dead till you go into one of these mall stores and all you see is glitter and foil and stuff. And anyway, but Forever 21 was putting InDesign, Photoshop, AI, all on disks, just copying them blatantly and giving them to the store managers to use for advertising and stuff like that. So who knows what Adobe's going to sue them for unspecified damages. But I thought it was interesting on our counterfeiting theme here. So who knows?
My version of Photoshop is probably on 11 of my PCs, but they're all mine. But each time I new PC, I put my version of Photoshop on it.
Pre-cloud, which we're going to talk about next, you had a serial number, and I'm with you. You put it on multiple machines. I know at US Screen, as we grew, I got real nervous because Adobe was openly offering rewards for employees to turn people in. I forget, I don't think it was Adobe, it was the Anti-Bootlegging Coalition or something. And they would do mailings and say, we're offering rewards if you think your bosses are putting it on multiple computers. That's how Forever 21 got caught, by the way. Someone was a whistleblower and got a little money out of it. But I got a little nervous. But now with the Creative Cloud, I'm not sure you can do that. So I think times have changed. And now with everybody being online, it checks the license and verifies it. But yeah, I'm with you. You'd have a disk and you have the serial number and you'd put it on multiple machines and think, I deal with that with t-biz too. People sometimes will come in and say, like an artist will come and say, I need to be unlocked. And I'm going, I don't show you as the owner. Oh yeah, Bob at the place I used to work bought it, so anyway.
That one of the great passages in my life was when I really didn't care, when you still had to pay for long distance. When I really didn't care if I made a long distance call or not, I didn't hesitate because I was making that big expensive call. And that was sort of a coming of age for me. And paying whatever Adobe wants or whatever Microsoft wants, because I'm really using those tools, really doesn't matter if I pay $500 or $800 for that tool, because I'm going to make so much money with that product. It really doesn't matter how much I spend for Creative Cloud. It bothers me because I'm not in the t-shirt business every day like I used to be. So the idea of spending even 20 or 30 bucks a month for the whole Creative Cloud or just for Photoshop or Lightroom, I like buying my one little copy of Lightroom, and because I'm not in business anymore. But I have no problem if I'm in business. It's nothing compared to the labor.
No, I agree. Hey, our next section is called Tech Talk. And Tech Talk is where Richard and I get together and go, gee, what are tech things that people get confused on or maybe they need some help with? And I tell you what, the Creative Cloud is still the biggest mystery to some people. I'm thinking Adobe's been out with Creative Cloud now a year and a half. Maybe it was summer, so it must have been almost 2 years.
Yeah.
And so you think 2 years later, people would have figured it out. But I can't tell you, I probably get 2 or 3 calls a week are comments from customers that are using my t-biz, and I'm saying, what version of Photoshop are you on? And they're going, well, I'm on CS2 or CS3, and I'm not going to go to that new one, that cloud. I don't want to have my computer locked into that. And you can just tell there's a total confusion. And then I tell them, look, it's no different than if you own it. You're going to download the software locally. It's on your computer. For $50 a month, you're going to get Photoshop that you can put on 2 computers, never pay for upgrades in your life again. You're going to get Adobe Illustrator, Macromedia Dreamweaver, Adobe Editor, PDF Editor. You're going to get 20 Adobe products for $50 a month that you can put on 2 computers, Mac or PC. And it's going to check your computer once a month, every 6 weeks, and make sure that you've made your payment, make sure your licenses are updated. Every now and then it's going to say, hey, we need to do an update, and you push a button on update, and it updates automatically. I don't see the downside. But people are afraid that this cloud, this magic, they don't probably think it's just a bank of computers somewhere, but they think it's this magic aura that all their data gets sent up to, and I did a webinar on it, but still people don't watch that stuff. But I'm just saying that the cloud I'm a fan of, because now I can have AI on 2 computers. I got Photoshop on a Mac and a PC. I never have to pay, every year Adobe come out with an update and it'd be another $200. And so I don't know. You're probably not on the cloud because you don't use the stuff that often, I don't think. Probably not.
Aren't you, isn't the Creative Cloud just, you download it from the cloud? It isn't doing the cloud. It's not like Google Docs or the new Microsoft Online.
Yeah, it's not online. You just download it.
It is in the cloud. It's just every program. I haven't gotten a disk. I haven't bought a disk in ages. I download everything from a server in San Jose or something like that.
Yeah, it's people think that you're working on the cloud. You're not. You're downloading it as if you downloaded software. And then, but it automatically wants to log onto your computer, Adobe does, and check and make sure that you've made your payment, and you pay the $50 a month. I think I should check it out, but because they do all kinds of deals. It was at one time $19.95 if you want Photoshop only, not the whole smorgasbord. And so for $20 a month, you now have the latest Photoshop. Of course, still screeners are on the holdout because of they removed the screen button back in CS5, and now you can't set the halftone line angle in CS5 or later, and that ticked off a lot of screeners. I can't blame them. So a lot of guys aren't upgrading because of that. But when somebody calls me and says, I just bought a new computer and I'm getting Photoshop, they don't realize to get Photoshop today, all you're going to get, unless you get a bootleg, is CC 2014, the latest one, and you have no choice. So people say, I'm going to go buy Photoshop. No, you're not going to buy Photoshop anymore. You're going to license it.
You're going to subscribe or get a license for Photoshop.
Yeah. So I'm a fan of the Creative Cloud. I mean, maybe for you, and like Mike Fresener, Mike does a little stuff, but not much. For Mike, $50 a month would be an extra expense he doesn't need, and for you don't use it often enough. That $50 a month might be too much. But you said earlier, for an average screener who's doing business, doing stuff every day, and in it, it's the cost of doing business. It's nothing.
Well, you've mentioned the $50 a month for the full shebang of all the Photoshops, the whole creative suite, but it's only $99. It's only $9.95 a month for Photoshop and Lightroom.
Maybe that's what it was, because they do deals on that. So maybe it is $9.95, which is nothing.
Which that's $120 a year.
It's coffee a couple times at a restaurant. I mean, it's nothing, you know. So anyway, I always get irritated at people that go, well, I'm not going to be paying that $50 a month. Well, what do you pay for Photoshop? $600 alone, single user. AI $600, $200 every couple years on updates. You know.
GIMP.
Are we in the rants and raves part of the show here?
No. Look, now, what I remember, my big disappointment when I really prowled it was that there's no ink transfer curves anymore, and these other halftone things. I think we should do some sort of an analysis, or because you're living in Photoshop every single day, and I'm not. So that's something we should come back to. How what have we lost, or what can we do for those workarounds?
Yeah, we lost the transfer function, and so yeah, I agree. Let's do that on another show. But that's a good topic. We can make a note quick on that transfer function somewhere. Speaking of confusion, you're an expert on rips. Rest in peace, right?
Screen printing rips, not color matching rips.
So what's a rip? I mean, I know what a rip is, but
a rip is it means raster image processor, but it's a printer driver, and so a screen printer's rip is the world's smartest printer driver. When you buy an Epson printer, you're getting a rip already. It's just called the printer driver, and it converts what you send to it into the raster, which means back and forth, back and forth. It just means that's what's going to translate what you wanted in your computer program into what the printer can understand and print out. And as we well know, that just sending something to the Epson printer, it's not opaque enough, because the drivers only put down just enough ink to get the colors beautiful for the photos and to work with their papers. You don't see any other inclusion of films and papers except the Epson people. Well, we need more ink. That non-opaque, transparent black ink that we use has to be put down in much bigger quantities, and that's why we have to use Epson printers, because they use piezo heads, and the other printers like HPs and Canons use thermal heads, and they just can't be hot-rodded by smarter programmers than you and I. Well, maybe not you, but certainly smarter than I, so that we increase the amount of ink, and it stops ultraviolet energy from getting to your stencil.
So people buy these printers, and they think because it has a rip in it that it's going to print. And of course, they call me and say, "Well, I don't need your rip, Scott." And I go, "Well, yeah, you do." And they go, "Well, no, I can get a rip real cheap." And I go, "Well, does that rip do halftones?" And they never know. And I say, just call the rip developer and say, "Will this do halftone dots?" Because as you and I know, rips are designed for color management, also to match PMS colors for wide format. Well, we aren't doing that. And you know, in CMYK printing, you look at the black plate of, like, if you do a CMYK separate, usually it's a skeleton. There's not much black because you're making black with CMY, and then the K is kind of kissing it, and so, yeah, you need a rip. So there's a lot of confusion there, I think, and people don't know they need a rip. You know, I get that call probably daily, you know, why do I need your rip? Of course, it's a pre-sales call for me. You know, why do I need your rip, Scott? And I go back and say, well, if you're doing spot color and you want to print out to your Epson inkjet printer at the highest photo quality setting, which is dog slow. Anybody's ever printed a really high quality on glossy paper image out, you know, you go to lunch. Well, so a rip speeds all that up and lays down more ink and is the magic and gives you more production. But there's still lots of, I tell you what, it's weird though. I'll bet a third of the separations I do, people tell me they haven't got a rip, because I offered to pre-halftone the files for them, and I'm still surprised. I want to tell these guys, what's wrong with you? Why haven't you got a rip? But I do the separations and send them off the pre-halftone files that they're going to print out to their laser printer or maybe their inkjet at highest photo quality setting. But it goes back to the Creative Cloud thing. You piss away $400 for a rip, and now you're in control. Without a rip, you're not in control. And I don't get that people don't buy. It's just me probably having a little more opinion. We're back on my rants and raves here probably, but I think people need to buy a rip. But they don't get it. They don't want to do it. You know. When you were at Ulano, you were doing ink testing and rip testing and all that.
I wrote an article in 2008 for the European magazine, Specialist Printing magazine, and you can't get the copy of that article on their website. They don't have any articles that they publish. You've got to pay the $70 a year for 3 issues a year. But I do have the exact same article. It's still on the Ulano website. I'm putting the link in the show notes.
We'll put the link up here right now, yeah.
There's an explanation of the difference between thermal heads and the Epson heads, which are piezo, and why Epson's the only one that can be hot rodded, so we can increase, double, triple, even quadruple the amount of ink so that we stop ultraviolet energy, and that's what makes it a positive. But also, when you put down 3 times or 4 times as much ink as a normal, beautiful, custom picnic photograph, the dots gain like mad because you're splashing so much ink down on that piece of film. This is why you've got to be able to control your halftones, and this is why you need a screen printing rip.
Well, it's calibrated. Most, like the guys that we know that make my rip, they've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours doing tests and densitometer readings and going, okay, the file said make it a 5% dot, but if we don't choke that back, it's going to be a friggin' 20% dot, so we got to curve it back in the rip. So the rip takes care of all that. The unfortunate thing is that every rip can't know what brand of film you're using and what dot gain you're getting on what film. And, you know, like when we had US Screen, it was all a system. We had our rip, we had our ink, we had our film, we did all the tests, and so when you printed a 50% dot, you got a 50% dot in the film. But that's the other thing. The rips have to be calibrated and have to be, you know, pretty much designed to cover all that. Like you say, it just splats a bunch of ink out on the film.
We make our own halftones now, so we have to understand how to calibrate and make sure that when we say we want a 10% dot, we may have to make a 6% dot, because by the time we put it down on a positive, we make the screen, this ink that goes on a t-shirt, an absorbent t-shirt, it's not a piece of metal, it's not going to gain any. All these instances modify the dot size, and that's what calibration is all about. And that's done in the art. It's not a magic thing that your printers can do.
No, so it's important. I think the rip's important, but I still get that call. Can I do like with my T-Seps, can I use your T-Seps without a rip? And my response usually is, if you have an inkjet printer that prints real dark, which the Epson 1400 and 1430 use dye-based ink now, which is nice and dense on film, print high photo quality setting, go to lunch to print your films out. But yes, you can convert a file to halftone dots in Photoshop. There's a quick tips on my website about it, because you have to upsample the file first, otherwise you're going to get real jaggy halftones. But yeah, you can do it. But you print out of AI or Corel, there's no way. You have grayscale images, and without a rip, you can't get a halftone dot. So rips are, I think, are like the Creative Cloud. I think there's a lot of confusion still after all these years on rips. You know, so let's talk about trade shows. You know, we just finished ISS Long Beach, and we did our report on that, and it was, I think, the best ISS show I've ever had. And now we've got coming up, let's focus on for a minute. We have coming up Atlantic City, which I can remember there being snow on the boardwalk at the Atlantic City show in March. That show was really weird. If you aren't careful, you're going to get.
Oh man.
I don't know if it snowed last year. It must have snowed last year because in March it was still snowing through April on the East Coast last year.
In my report, I put my suitcase out of the car, and literally, when Pierre drove away, my suitcase was blown over and then slid down the kind of a ramp in the hotel I was
It's
at.
Atlantic City. If nobody's ever been to Atlantic City, you walk between the hotels on the boardwalk, and it's like a hurricane. I meant to tell you, did you notice this? I'm giving you a solidarity here. I haven't shaved for 2 weeks.
Oh, it's back to the old Scott.
Beards are in. You ever know? I mean, look at the Grammys. How many guys had beards? It's like, really, you look at TV commercials and what's his name, Matthew McConaughey and his stupid Lincoln commercials. You know, the beards are back, but mine is so gray. I'm gonna have to wait and see how it goes. I'll put up a picture of me when I was younger. I wore a beard for 30 years. When I shaved it off, Michelle, my daughter, was in tears. I shaved it off when she was a little younger to see how it looked, and she didn't know who Dad was. So anyway.
Your younger pictures, you look like Michael.
or like Charlie.
Yeah.
Oh,
and we still had hair.
yes. So back to Atlantic City. You're going to go. You and Pierre are going to go.
Yep.
And that show over the years always was a solid show. That Upper East Coast, crowd, that show to me when we used to exhibit, that was a good show. I always enjoyed that. And of course, I had dinner with my buddy Richard LeBov, rest in peace. There, he had to have his steak. He liked the steak, so we would go boys' night out, have our steak at Atlantic City. I miss those days. But you're going to do seminar. You're going to do the. I'm joking. You can do the 5 points, right? So you can fit it in the 90 minutes.
Pierre Yanishi and I are doing the same thing that we did in Long Beach.
Which was 15 what?
15 different variables, and we're approaching it from 2 different ways. I'm from the consulting and the screen printing expert viewpoint, and Pierre from the serial entrepreneur, the business leader viewpoint.
Right.
So
now that show is
why it's important to both of us.
I think it's a great idea. Although you said you didn't quite get through all the 15, so maybe.
Unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, I always
Yeah, so you're going to get it down. You'll get all 15
yes,
in the 90
yes.
minutes. Atlantic City is March 13th to the 15th. There's going to be also, you think, the T-shirt, the shirt board dinner.
Don't tell anybody, but it's a free dinner supported by the shirt board. Go to theshirtboard.com and prowl around, and you'll find out the information of where the event is going to be.
So you don't know where it's at. I mean, the show's at the convention center, but it's probably somewhere down on the boardwalk.
I do know, but I'm not allowed to tell you.
Okay.
It's something.
Right.
Go to the shirt board. You got to jump through their hoop. That's all.
You have to probably post.
With people you would never meet elsewhere.
Oh yeah, I think it's a great deal. I'm not going to be there. I apologize for that, but you're going to be there. You're going to do it. We're going to do a show report from Atlantic City.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But then on the ISS vein, Nashville. Last year was a pretty good show. That Music City Center is a kick-ass center. It's huge.
Pain in the ass to park in, because you could park all the way down there and then all the way walk back. So man with a cane, I would have said, design another elevator, please.
You need to drive along for that show.
No, I'm going to have somebody drop me off, Scott.
I agree. Mike and I went and we parked. We didn't know where the show was, what the hall is. So we're like you. We parked here and we walked way like a mile to get to the show. But that's going to be a good show. And you're going to come down from Detroit down through Bowling Green and can hang with me for a day or two, and we'll do some more videos there. But that show hopefully will grow.
I'll go look at the Corvettes that are still surviving at the Corvette Museum.
No, they filled the hole up. I don't know why. That was the biggest straw. They had record people come to the Corvette Museum after the sinkhole, and then it was a big deal in the Bowling Green paper. Should we fill the hole or not? And somebody said let's fill it. And they filled it up, and of course that was stupid because people really that was something they go see. Anyway, I never saw it. I'm not a car guy. I live in Bowling Green in the summer, and people go, oh, the Corvette Museum. That's a mile from my house. I've never been there. But I live in Arizona, and I've been to the Grand Canyon once in over 50 years.
Okay.
It's a big hole in the ground, And once you've kind of seen it, now that's just me. So.
But if you go when it's fresh snow, like Robert Wisniewski and I did, be there at 8 in the morning after fresh snowfall. What an amazing sight, the Grand Canyon.
I'll have to do that. See, my wife is afraid of heights. The one time I was there, I think we parked about a half a mile away. because she didn't want to get too close to the edge. So anyway, so trade shows, that was ISS. For those that don't know, like we used to always think that ISS had Orlando in February. That was for years. We would go to Florida in February. But now they've moved Orlando to September to be co-locate with the Surf Expo. So there's no ISS show. So now we have Nashville, then we go to Fort Worth. And then we have, that's the NBM. So NBM.
The National Business Bureau is taking over that March section. So they're running their show at the Orlando Orange County Convention Center February 25th through the 27th.
Right.
If you're in Florida, that's the show that replaces ISS in the spring. But ISS is now in September, as you mentioned.
But that's a good spot for NBM, I think. Printwear, we always know it as printwear. Now they're kind of calling it NBM, but I think you and I will, maybe I'm wrong, but I always think of it as a printwear show.
They just combine 2 or 3 of their magazines into one show. So the printwear section is sometimes only 2 or 3 aisles, whereas the imprinted sportswear show, it's the entire show.
That's the problem with the print. I mean, you know, we love Bob and the guys at Printwear, but sometimes you do get that bitch. People go to the show and they go, well, I didn't want to see all the award stuff, or I didn't want to see the signed stuff. And Printwear magazine, that's your
That's my official Printwear badge.
That's your lifetime pass?
Well, I don't know. It got me into. I mean, I might have worn it when I wasn't actually still on the staff. When I was on the staff as the technical editor of Printwear magazine for 5 years.
But I think people like their show because, like a lot of the smaller shows, you get more quality time. You go to ISS and you're so jammed, and the booths are so jammed, you feel guilty taking up a guy in the working the booth's time too much, I think. Whereas the Printwear shows, or even the DAX show we're going to talk about next, it's a smaller shows and you can get a lot of quality booth time and stuff. So we got Printwear in February, 25th and 27th.
I'm telling people not to go to the SGIA show anymore, that they need to save up their money, and textile printers need to go to Long Beach and not invest their time at SGIA.
I would agree, but I usually tell people to go to SGIA just because
It's one choice.
If you have one choice, go to ISS. But
No question.
If you do a couple, like SGI this year is going to be in Atlanta, and so you got East Coast, West Coast. But last year it was in Vegas, and you have ISS in Long Beach, and that was kind of close for the West Coast guys. So anyway, so we won't discuss SGI too much now. We'll get to that. You said you'd never been to a DAX show, Scott Ritter, but I used to do them, and the guys that do them, you know, like Terry Combs, our buddy, you know, those guys do those shows. They're small ballroom shows, which some of our shows used to be years and years ago. You had the Terry Cook show and all those things. Those little ballroom shows, you get a lot of one-on-one time with people. You get quality time, and I think they're well received. So the next DAX show is February 27th to the 28th in Kansas City, Kansas. And yeah, so that's a good location. He does Minneapolis, Chicago, Kansas City, kind of that little Midwest thing, you know.
I may have to go because then I'll have to drive by Arthur Bryant's for dinner.
In Kansas City?
Arthur Bryant's the best barbecue I've ever had.
It must be steak or barbecue then if it's in Kansas City.
Barbecue, baby.
All right.
You know, the last time when I was in Nashville, that barbecue just was not what it was supposed to be. I'm expecting you to.
I gotta find the right barbecue place for you. When Michelle comes to visit me, she wants barbecue. We've tried, I think it's Risky's. I'm not sure where you and I went, but
you got 4 different places over the course of that one weekend, and
we went to the Broadway Mojo Lounge where people watch. So anyway, and then coming up, trade. Are we good with the NBM?
Oh yeah, I mean they've got other shows. They got Indianapolis, of course, is always a big popular show because it's in the middle of the country, and they do a Long Beach show, but they're also going to Philadelphia. So they're definitely competing with ISS and going to all the big places. Yeah.
Well, the Philadelphia ISS did Philadelphia for years, and then I think Philadelphia kicked them out because they weren't as big, and then went to Atlantic City, which is hard to get to. You can't fly there. You got to fly to Philly and take a car service or take a train or whatever. So NBM is
$16.
Yeah, it's not
$16
expensive.
to take the train. Go into town to 30th Street Station and then take the Amtrak all the way to Atlantic
We used
City.
to have a car service guy. Every year we'd call him, hey, I forget his name, a husband and wife. They owned a couple limos, and they were friends, and he'd pick us up, take us. We'd see him on the driving around. So anyway.
I don't know if people are available in March. They should be going to the very important Screen Printers boot camp.
Well, come to beautiful Bowling Green. Speaking of a city you can't get into, Bowling Green has an airport, but there's no It was a big deal. Now they're going to start commercial flights, I think, next year, which will be commuters. But the Bowling Green is only 60 miles from Nashville. We got our printers boot camp. Mike and I, my son, are doing 4 this year, and we do them at the Sloan Convention Center, which has a Holiday Inn attached to it. These small towns. It's kind of a combo convention center / hotel. But we're doing our boot camp, master color separators, and Michael's doing the how to print T-shirts we've been doing for friggin' 30 years. And so March 22nd through the 24th, Bowling Green. Let's talk about new products, product news, just some quick stuff. I'm a fan of the Epson F2000 direct-to-garment printer because I have one for the classes and stuff, and I'm a fan of it. That thing is, they've reduced the price out of it, though. I was surprised. That thing lists at $19,995, but I was online the other day looking at Equipment Zone and other guys and Lawson and everybody. That thing is down now to $14,995 with a bunch of rebates to get to that price. I think they're giving a $2,000 cash rebate, a $1,000 because you're a nice guy rebate, and I think they're giving $1,000. No, maybe it's $2,000. Go online and check it out with any of the DTG guys. It's $2,000 if you send them your old T-Jet or your old DTG or your old Anajet, like a trade-in. Doesn't have to work, and so. I'm not sure if they're actually shipping the machines to Epson, and Epson in Long Beach is just putting them in a big dumpster. I don't know what they're doing. I should find out. But the price is right. It's down to $14,995. That's a good price. I don't know if that means that they're not selling as many machines or they're trying to compete with that price point on the Anajets and other brands that are down to that level. So I don't know what that means. But anyway.
It is a zillion of them. Or got a new model coming out, 2001.
Well, that could be. I don't really know, but I'm a fan of the machine. And then on other quick new product news, very self-serving, I introduced my T-Ceps 3.5 to satisfy Adobe. Adobe in June made this major change in how plugins work with Photoshop. They went from Flash-based plugins for what's called an extension-type plugin. That was a lot of stuff worked in extensions. They went from Flash-based, and Adobe says, well, Apple doesn't like our Flash, so we're going to move on from Flash. They totally changed, and now it has to be HTML5. So we had to rewrite the entire front end for T-Ceps, the installer. They changed all kinds of stuff. Even my programmer that I use for the hard coding says Adobe seems to have hired kids. I mean, really, all the programmers are so ticked off. The documentation now sucks. The support sucks from a programming side when things aren't working. We went through hoops getting some of our routines to work right. It was because they made little under-the-hood changes that they thought nobody would care about and it wouldn't affect anything. And so it's been very frustrating for me. But anyway, bottom line is, if you buy Photoshop now, back to our Creative Cloud topic from earlier, if you get Photoshop now, you get what's called CC 2014. That is different than CC. And I think they're all in this wrong numbering scheme. They're calling it CC when the cloud came out. Then they roll out this new update, and now it's CC 2014. And I'll get people all the time saying, I got your older T-Ceps and it won't work now. And I go, what'd you do different? Well, I updated my Adobe. Well, then you got to update the T-Ceps. So I have 3.5 for that. It's a real simple, I think a $75 update if you already own T-Ceps, so it's no big deal. And I'm rolling out my new T-Rip 2.0 in about 10 days. T-Rip 2.0 just has some updates, some fixes, some Windows 8.1 stuff, and of course now I got to worry about what happened to Windows 9. They've been kind of beta testing Windows 10. I don't know, where did 9 go? You must know something about that.
I ran Windows 10 on my test machine, and it really doesn't look any different, but there's a lot of new things.
You tested 10? Is that what you said? I missed it.
I did. I just, for a little while, just to see if it would work on one of my older machines, because a guy I know told me that it would. So I tried it, but it just wasn't different enough, and I don't think it's going to be that much different, but it's going to smooth out. It works better under the hood. And again, it's the beta version, so it crashed a bunch of times. So
how did you get it? How did you? Is it online where you can just download a beta?
They had a beta that came out with the World Developers Conference maybe 2 months ago.
Well, I missed that.
Told me about it.
Holy crap! I had no idea. Well, that's good to know. So every time they roll this stuff out, we always think, oh, maybe we'll cross our fingers and everything's going to work, and then we get the new version. And guys like me, I'm a small developer, so I never get any pre-developer copies. It used to be years ago I was on the Adobe developers group, and it was much smaller, and I could get a pre-release, but not anymore. They only talk to guys like me anymore. Well, that shows because they removed the screen button, what they care about. The screen print guys.
When it comes back, I mean, when 10 comes out, I will buy another server with that on it, and move off of the Windows 8 computer that I got. That's my server here for the house where we have. I think we have 15 computers here in the house now.
You're gonna send me a picture of that so we can see what your control central looks
I
like.
have a computer every. I got my tablets stacked up like mad. Yesterday, I bought an HP 7 tablet for $79. Just for $79, I don't have to teach people how to deal with Android. It's coming here tomorrow. I'll have a good report for you whether I liked it or not. I bought a Toshiba Encore. That was only $200 for a Windows 7-inch computer that I could access my network. Much better than the Androids.
Wow. See, I'm still looking at the iPad, my iPad 1, or what it isn't here, but that I think I paid $600 for. And of course now I go to download apps. Oh, you need OS whatever 7. And of course the iPad 1 doesn't run any of the newer OSs, you know. And so half the apps now I go to download on my iPad are like they don't work on the iPad. So, but that's life in the fast lane on computers. Hey, you're a book nut. In fact, behind you is your all your copies of Screen Printing Magazine going back to pre-Civil War, I think, aren't they?
I have issues. The September 1954 issue is the earliest one. That's the first issue of Screen Printing Magazine. I have been cutting the bindings off, and I've been scanning it for years. So the Tenderloin years of 1977 to, let's say, 1999, those are the best years for the documentation. But today...
Yeah, but what's current here? What's the newest thing?
I just got this in the mail this week. This is the newest issue of Sign and Digital Graphics Magazine from National Business Media. You can go to, here in the show notes, I've got the link to where you can go. You should subscribe. It's a free magazine anyway. You put in your data once a month and you get it. But there are 3 excellent articles this month, especially for people that are interested in digital graphics, which I know a lot of your fans and customers are. There's an article about pigment inks by Ray Wood, who used to work for DuPont. There's a man who really knows his pigment inks, and well worthwhile. There's also an article about Corel spot color accuracy, and there's always columns by Rick Williams, the master of the shop column. He's been running a sign painting shop and sign shop for years and years, and I've met him a couple of times at the NVM shows. We would work together. And of course, the great Vince DiCecco, who's writing an article about how to do corrective work. He's a business writer that I love, and again, know him from my many years of doing seminars with him at NVM.
This is all in that one issue?
All in that one issue.
Wow.
You can see the entire issue in the link that I'll put in the show notes.
I mean, usually an issue will have maybe a Corel article. I mean, you know, it's just funny that would have so much meat, because sometimes there's no meat, and sometimes in the trades, you know, you get the news and stuff, but there's no meat. But they have that much meat. I think that's great.
Well, I read all the magazines, so you don't have to decide which ones to read. But this is what you should read this month.
It's digital. It's digital online, right?
Yes, it's digital online.
I know printware. I get my printware and if those that don't know, if you subscribe to them, you get printware, you get impressions, all digital. It comes in, you click the little button, and you know the little flash thing makes the page turn sound. Huh?
I love to cut the paper out.
See, I'm still a paper guy. I still like to. I'm that guy that likes to have it to look at and stuff. I'm probably getting too old school, although now I read my news on my phone. Hey, listen, it's been fun. This is our first show of the T-shirt report. And if things go our way and we can figure out how to do it, we're going to try and go live on this sometime where we can call in and ask questions. But just send us email to either scott@tbiznetwork.com and just with the ideas for shows. We'd love to hear from you guys with thoughts, comments, and we'll see you next week. Richard, it's been great talking to you. Get out there now and shovel some more snow. I got to get out by the pool and kind of clean the pool and get ready for summer.
Time's over.
All right. Bye-bye.